Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
It's my pleasure to welcome Jeff Berry to the show. He is Senior Director of Research at Colloquy. Yes, that's a tough one to pronounce. And Jeff is here to tell us what it means. But we are talking about loyalty programs and consumer and client engagement. Jeff, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, Jason. I'm great. How are you?
Good. I was surprised to learn that colloquy is not a fanciful, made-up word. We have so many of those nowadays because all the domain names are taken. So, in the old days, we had Kodak and Exxon, and, now we have a zillion others. Colloquy is actually a word, huh?
It is. It's. I believe it's Latin. It actually means dialogue. Really, it's about creating communication between parties.
Good. Well, that's an important part of anybody's business, and I'm sure our listeners will get some good ideas from you today on that. So we appreciate you joining us. Give our listeners a sense of geography, too. Where are you located?
We have offices around the globe. I'm actually headquartered in Toronto, so I'm up in snowy Canada today.
Good stuff. Okay. So loyalty and engagement and this dialogue, very, very important to any business, obviously, when you look at the lifetime value of a customer. How can businesses be better at creating it?
Yeah, I think the core of when most people think about loyalty programs, they think about a reward itself, or they think about consumers pulling out a card at the point of transaction, at the point of purchase. We generally think about any company's loyalty program really as a means to try and engage consumers. Part of the best benefit of a loyalty program is ultimately the underlying data asset that's created and visibility into what consumers are doing. And when used for marketing purposes or to create more one-to-one kinds of experiences, I think consumers are certainly both open to that, but also expecting it. In the research that we do, we found that 79% of consumers are saying, I understand that companies collect data about me, and I'm fine with it. I think they need to use it to actually create unique experiences for me. So as we think about loyalty programs, they really become a tool to create a meaningful dialogue or meaningful engagement with consumers based on the things that consumers are actually doing with the particular retailer or financial institution or travel and hospitality company. This understanding that consumers have different needs, have different buying patterns and behaviors, and ultimately that information can be used to customize the way in which companies deal with and relate to those consumers and interact and create a dialogue with them is really a powerful way to actually drive customer engagement and ultimately customer value over the long term.
Yeah, it certainly is. Okay, so let's kind of drill down, if we could, Jeff, and talk about some specific examples of, maybe how some of your clients are using this. You have a lot of Fortune 1000 type companies as clients, and, maybe take that into the realm of how a solopreneur or a small business might use this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for most small businesses, they may think naturally of a loyalty program as being something that they're not able to do. There's cost associated with it. In a lot of cases, small businesses often feel like they actually have the advantage over large companies, and we certainly are seeing that more and more because they're closer to their customers. They generally have a smaller customer base. Not to suggest that they're certainly not. That they are not viable businesses. They're thriving businesses, but they often are closer to their customers, and so this need to actually genericize the experience through a loyalty program is often not something they think about. I think what we're seeing, we're certainly seeing large enterprises do a number of different things with their loyalty programs. You're seeing an explosion and kind of a revamping of loyalty within the context of pharmacy, as an example. So Walgreens and CVS and Rite Aid all have big loyalty programs, but they're actually thinking about how do they turn those programs into mechanisms that are not just about a purchase. You buy this and I give you that. How do they actually leverage programs to create healthier lifestyles? So they're trying to reward on things like flu vaccinations and buying certain healthy products over unhealthy products. So they're trying to actually use the underlying data to move people around the store in a way that is more appealing to consumers because it feels very cause-oriented. So I think as it relates to how small businesses think about that, there is a need to understand your customers beyond strictly the what are they buying. It is about how do you actually create some forum for engagement. We know in some recent research that we did, 89% of consumers say that they don't actually make decisions about what they're going to buy anymore unless they've invoked some form of social media. So they've gone online, they looked for ratings and reviews. It's actually not really a new phenomenon. The tools are there to enable it to be much easier to actually engage that way. But when you think about 50 years ago, you would buy something on the basis of what your neighbor said was a good product, or trusted advisors, your friends and family, those sorts of things. So given that context, there's a need then even for small businesses to think about how are they actually connecting up consumer transaction behavior with the social conversation, because consumers are actually looking to peers and other forums to actually decide whether or not they're going to buy from you or engage from you in any meaningful way. So small businesses still have the need to understand the fulsome customer experience and often some form of a loyalty program mechanism, which is really ultimately just an identifier of the consumer to connect different pieces of behavior to one individual in order to enable appropriate communication with them.
I'm still trying to kind of like drill down, as a listener to this is awesome, but I want to know what I should do. What should I do next? Are there some platforms that, you might recommend? Are there some ideas? I mean, this comes way back to the time of the old punch card, which, by the way, is still used. There are many apps for it. People are using on smartphones too. But just, your 10th coffee is free or whatever. This is not Starbucks, obviously, but the few local coffee shops that are actually left in business. And those kind of things, I mean, they really do work. The car washes use them. You see those kinds of things all the time. But taking this into the more electronic realm, it can be pretty powerful, can it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. I mean, I think there certainly is a place for what I deem as more promotional kinds of loyalty programs, the punch card type of a program, but they're very reliant on the consumer to be making the choice every time. You have no ability to actually interact with the consumer to try and motivate that behavior. You assume that the free product at the end of the rainbow is the motivating factor exclusively. And I think oftentimes the motivating factor goes deeper than strictly the free thing I'm going to get. It may also be about, special events or special recognition as a customer or special discounting. So I think that, there are certainly organizations out there, in some measure competitive to our organization, although we tend to not serve small businesses, but there are organizations like 500 Friends that actually are loyalty program platforms that are much more turnkey and enable you to actually capture data. I think the ultimate goal in the data element is to recognize that even as small businesses, we probably are doing a lot of things. We give away a free coffee. We also have discount days. We also have special events that we run, and we want to invite people. Your loyalty program, if you take it digital, actually has the ability to try and optimize for you across all of those things. So equally, when you give somebody a discount on a particular sale date, you're still giving them the punch card deal. You're still giving them, some other future discount or whatever. And ultimately, you may actually not really understand which of the things are most motivating to your consumers. And by taking that program digital, or at least the recognition digital, you now have the ability to say, Jason actually is motivated by the free thing, the free car wash at the end, where Jeff actually wants a 10% discount every time he goes. And you can actually start to optimize what you're doing from a marketing standpoint so that you're getting the most out of your consumers while also minimizing the cost associated with that, because oftentimes you're doubling up on the kinds of things that you're giving to people.
Good. Okay, so yeah, that's 500friends.com, and that's the number 500, and then friends.com is what you mentioned. I looked at that site. Okay, good. Well, what's the future of this? I mean, I assume your company spends a great deal of time thinking about where this is all going, as we've seen the data mining industry just balloon. I mean, it's a huge industry. It is amazing the kind of information that people can glean about the consumer nowadays. This has never, ever been available in history, obviously. Even if you, in the old days owned a general store and had someone come in all the time and talk to you and you knew everybody by name in a small town, you still probably know a lot more about them today. I mean, back then, you probably didn't know their income. You probably didn't know a bunch of things that you can know today. You didn't know their web surfing habits. There was no web. But it's amazing. It's truly amazing. Where is this all going? I mean, for better or worse, by the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there is a better and worse. I mean, I think that ultimately the motivation for organizations around doing this is to better understand consumer behavior in order to tailor the experience. And so I think, the perfect world that we're ultimately moving towards is the integration of all of that data. What do I think and feel about you as an organization? And then what am I actually doing with you? How am I shopping with you? How am I engaging with you when you run, special events or those sorts of things? All the connection point on all of those ultimately gets to a truly tailored experience for each consumer. And with the advent of mobile in the loyalty space, so that continues to become where most loyalty programs are going, digital. And mobile delivery, it also creates this ability to deliver meaningful experiences in real time. So no longer am I, clipping coupons before I go into the grocery store. I actually am getting tailored offers, ones that are specific and relevant to me and the things that are interesting to me while I'm in the store shopping around, and perhaps even, tools that are helping me move around the store in the most efficient way, that are beacon or GPS enabled. So I think what we'll see is, ultimately, if you remember the movie Minority Report,
I just watched a similar movie to that the other night.
So not commenting on Tom Cruise's acting ability, I think that world where every company I interact with and everything that I'm interested in is really tailored to me to create the most relevant experiences as well as the most efficient, engaging experiences, I think is ultimately the world we're headed towards. The downside, I think is fairly limited. What I do think is happening right now is it's almost an arms race to get more and more and more information, and I think that there's a fallacy in more data and more information actually naturally makes for better experiences. I think, in fact, it actually creates more confusion in businesses. So I would suggest, both to large enterprises, but specifically to small businesses, the goal really should be, what's the right data? What can I actually affect within my store environment? Do I want information to help me change my product mix? So I want to see which things are actually more interesting to my best customers, as an example, because you may not today have visibility in that. You probably know which product movement looks like, but you don't know if your best customers are buying it or your worst. And if you delist something that doesn't seem like it moves frequently you may actually be annoying your best customers and have them turn somewhere else. So I think it's important to try and leverage the right information for that rather than volumes of data, because I think the volume is actually the crippling piece. And then the other downside becomes capturing all this stuff and not effectively using it. And certainly, we live in a world today where consumers understand what you know about them, and they do have an expectation that you're going to use that to create relevant experiences, not just use it for your own advantage.
Yeah, sure. Good stuff. Give out your website if you would, and tell people where they can find out more. Yeah,
we're two websites. We're actually at loyalty.com is the organization that lives in this customer engagement world, and then colloquy.com is our supporting publication site where we publish a view of global trends in the loyalty space and the customer engagement and customer experience spaces. You certainly can go and subscribe. It's a free subscription, and we publish 6 times a year, and we run conferences and a number of different things to engage our audience.
Good stuff. Well, we appreciate you sharing this with us. That's Jeff Berry with Colloquy and loyalty.com. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Take care.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.